Just as a recap, we passed a budget with some funding increases for the operations of the library and some ARPA money last month. And this meeting was requested to go over those items, what those funding increases would be used for, as well as provide a little history of their funding over the past 10 years or so. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. I am here today with Graham Baxter, who is our board treasurer. It is my pleasure to serve as your library director, and it is an honor to do so. Tonight we're going to discuss a summary of the revenues and expenditures 2014 to 2023. You have a detailed budget in your packet, a detailed budget history in your packet. We're trying to keep the type on the slides a little larger, so we'll only be looking at some of it tonight, but you've got it there. We'll be talking about our shared resources, our expense reductions, and the efficiencies we've achieved. We're going to be talking about grants and ARPA, and then we are going on to the next steps. Just to give you an overview this evening, here you will see our total revenues and municipal allocations. The green is the city of Mequon allocations. The purple at the bottom is a flat village of Thiensville allocation. That has been $110,740 a year for the last decade. Mequon does provide the lion's share of our budget, approximately 85%. And again, you've got the details in your packet. Our revenue resources, and now we're just looking at 2014 to 2023, the $1,106,716 represents a 5.11% increase over the allocation we received from the city in 2014. As I said, Thiensville is flat. As we look at county reimbursements, this is the number that fluctuates annually based on how many people in adjoining counties who don't have their own library have checked out our materials. It does fluctuate, but it is trending down. And our miscellaneous revenues include late fees, replacement costs, and used book sale revenues. Our expenditures, of course, between 2014 and 2023, our staffing has increased. Our staffing is pretty stable. We'll look at that later, but over the last decade, we are not only have our wages increased, but benefits have increased as well, as we see all over. Our health insurance and Wisconsin retirement obligations, so those are our administrative charges have dropped significantly because of efficiencies we're able to put into our workflow. Our program and collection budget, here we're looking at an increase of $23,000. However, I will say in the last couple of years, 2019, 2020, it was up to about $165,000 for our materials. These are all of our books, all of our movies, our music, our electronic databases, and our ebooks. So everything you would come in to borrow comes under that category. And our building, you can see, is reduced by almost half. And this, I think we can credit our diligent maintenance for that. We're able to keep those building charges, those building costs under control because we take care of things on a regular basis. Now here, oh, it's better than I thought it would be. Okay, here are the positions in the library. And you can see we have one library director, that's me. We have 3 managers. That would be our patron services manager who is in charge of all of our collections and all of our reference work, all of our programming. Our access services manager who does all the things that fall under library speak, our cataloging and our circulation. So when you are checking out materials, you are dealing with the staff that reports to the access services manager. And the third is a business manager. We have 3 librarians. They all have master's degrees, masters in library and information science, as do our patron services manager, our access services manager, and me. We have reference associates, and you see this has changed somewhat over the years. We had 48 hours in 2018. This is not from 2013. This is from 2018 when I started there. And now we have upped that to 60 hours. The reference questions, some people feel that everything we need is on the computer, but I will tell you the reference questions we're asked are getting more and more difficult. If it's too frustrating to Google it, call the library. We have a technician who handles much of our cataloging and processing, as well as some of our IT. Our access associates are the people you see at the checkout desk. They are the people who check in material, who repair the material. We were at 104 hours for that in 2018. We're up to 112 now. And then pages. These are the people who pull the books when you reserve something. And they are the people who put everything back on the shelf where it belongs. We've made some adjustments, and we're able to go from 60 hours per week when I started there to now just 36. We collaborate with our community for grounds maintenance, shared custodial services, trash and recycling, Wi-Fi to the civic campus spaces, shared audit services, and a fiscal agent. And because we're doing this, we save funds in all of those areas. Beyond the local community, we partner with the system, the Monarch Library System, which is 4 counties. We are a part of that, as well as statewide services. We have our ILS, our Integrated Library System, which is our secure database of all holdings and all patrons. We have a delivery service that serves the 4 counties. Beyond that, there is a service to deliver things throughout the state, deliver material throughout the state. We now get all of our IT consulting through the system. They are staffed to be able to provide that. And we also are purchasing our hardware and software through the system because of their cooperative purchasing agreements. Now we're going to talk about some of the dollars and cents we've been able to save. When I started here in 2017, late 2017, there was a contract for internet service through Time Warner Spectrum that was costing us $1,025 per month, and it was a 5-year contract. Now we are using a teach line available through the state. We have twice the bandwidth, twice the speed, and we are paying $10 a month, down from $1,025. We canceled our outside IT consulting, which started at $3,000 a year, just so we could call them. And now we are using the Monarch Library System for our IT consulting at no additional charge beyond our membership, which is included in our administrative budget. We are using Monarch Library System for discounted purchasing for hardware and software. And they also set up the computers for us, so as soon as they're delivered, we're ready to go. And we are adding RFID tags, that's radio frequency identification tags, to streamline checkout, check-in, and security. And we offer self-checkout for patron convenience, for those who want it. We also receive grants. Now, the interesting thing is, of course, grants do not cover operational expenses from anyone. But the Thiensville Lions Club has supported our large print and audiobook collections. Vision, blindness are important to them, so these services serve the people that the Lions Club serves. The Junior Women's Club of Mequon Thiensville supports many of our STEM activities, science, technology, engineering, and math, as well as our discovery kits, which are not only games, but programming kits and things you can take home and you can check out like any other item and take them home and use them. And also the hearing loop that we have in our community room, in our Tolsman community room, that makes it possible for people who are using hearing aids with T-coils to be able to hear them, to be able to hear in the room more conveniently. The Mequon Thiensville Community Foundation recently paid for a calming room, a quiet space for overstimulated visitors. So there's a lot going on at the library, and sometimes you just need to step back and calm down a little bit. That room is very popular and very much appreciated by the community. And then we have the Wyenberg Public Library Foundation. And I know you're looking at a big number here. Again, their bylaws do not allow them to support operational expenditures, but they do fund new collections, they update decor, they offer programs, and they paid for our quick pickup window on the southeast corner of the library, which indeed was inspired by COVID, but now is used by patrons bicycling or walking in the area, or who have a car full of kids that they don't want to take out of the car in the rain or the snow, just to pick up their items. So that has been greatly appreciated by our community and a huge benefit. The additional allocation we have been discussing, this is what we want to do with it. We will use it to cover a 3% across-the-board wage increase January 1, 2023. We're further reserving funds for market increases after we receive the results of the classification and compensation study. Additionally, administrative building and collections budgets have been reduced to further fund these unknown changes. Which brings us to ARPA. We have a 24-hour book return, and we need to, that is not real functional now. We need to replace the 24-hour book returns we have with something that will protect the books a little better. This one lets in moisture. And that 24-hour book return addresses the customer service. Our patrons really appreciate it. The RFID, while it will improve check-in and check-out, to really take advantage of the radio frequency identification, we would like to put in security gates, which will improve customer service, especially for that mom checking out 75 picture books, and one didn't check out right. It's going to go through and it's going to say, you need to check out Pete the cat. We're going to take care of that. And also to reduce theft, because sometimes our material grows feet. This will stop that. So that addresses customer service and financial stewardship, and then addressing capital and infrastructure. We hope our boilers are going to last a long time, but we are beyond their lifespan. So we would like to use ARPA funds to replace those. Our next steps are very simple and straightforward. During the first quarter of 2023, we want to review the library budget with the city, so we all know what we're looking at and our goals. In the second quarter of 2023, the city and the village plan to revisit the joint library agreement that is between the city and the village. The library benefits from the agreement but is not party to it. And finally, in the third quarter of 2023, we hope to come back and make a comprehensive presentation to you on our budget. I thank you very much. Questions?
Thank you for the overview.
Thank you.
Questions would be appropriate now. Alderman Giro?
I think that was a nice presentation. Just wanted to compliment you on that. A number of the questions that I had, you already answered. I did, in reading the information, I wondered what your relationship is with DPI and what materials do they provide to the library?
DPI provides a great deal of support for libraries. They take care of our licensing. For instance, a library of our size, the director must have a master's degree in library information science. They take care of those licenses. They also, we send a report, an annual report to them every February, and they are able to, they process that report, and they are able to provide standards, let us know what other libraries are doing, and where we fall in the Wisconsin library system. However, more important than that, they also facilitate such things as the Teach Line that I talked about, this internet access we're getting for $10 a month. They also work with the Wisconsin Public Library Consortium to provide our electronic items. You may have used Overdrive or Libby to download material, and that is all organized through the state. We contribute funds to make that happen and to expand our collection, but much of it goes on at DPI or affiliated organizations. They also help with such things as strategic planning. And if one is building a new library, they have consultants who can help us make sure that whatever we are building is going to serve us well. They also offer consulting in terms of what we need to do for a diverse collection, what absolutely needs to be in place for accessibility. They provide a great deal of research and counsel to make sure that we are providing the best possible service to our community.
Does diverse selection mean they send you materials, books, stuff like that?
They don't
Put on the
send
shelves.
us material, but they do offer suggestions if somebody, not so much for us, but if we had an opening day collection, or if we wanted to offer a new collection on some topic and needed more information about what should be in that collection, they are very helpful and offer consulting along those lines.
Okay, I have a number of quick questions. I wanted to make them fairly quick. What was your patron flow? I don't know what it's called, the people who come and go from the library each year. Do you have some type of estimates from 2018 through 2022 each year? 10,000
people walk through our doors every month. We are open 64 hours a week. When I started, we were open 6 days a week and a total of 56 hours. Now we are open 7 days a week during the school year. And our patrons come from all walks of life, which is very nice. We are able to provide programs for our youngest free readers. We have lots of story times for very young children. We also offer a great deal of a great many activities for teens and adults. In addition to the activities and the events we have people who just come in every morning to read the newspapers. We have people who check out material. We have people who don't have access to internet at home, or at least not high-speed access to internet at home. And they're coming in. This was especially important during COVID, when digital access was really the only way people could communicate with their friends and loved ones in other places. They were isolated, they were stuck at home, they could come and they could use the computers and they could keep in touch with family. We also offer, and this is a collaborative effort with 3 other libraries in the county, we offer memory cafes for people who are living with early onset Alzheimer's and other dementia, and their caregivers. So we're really reaching out and trying to provide service for everyone.
I was just looking for the flow. I mean, we had 2018, 2019, and you had the pandemic, 2020. I think somebody, I thought I saw flash somewhere of the numbers, but I don't remember what they were. I think you have them.
I do have them. If you will give me just a moment, I will bring them up. What, of course, happens is, we did take a dip in 2020. We could not do any programming in 2020 or most of 2021. Those numbers dipped. What did not dip was our access to people using Libby and Overdrive, the downloadable resources, people using our downloadable databases like Value Line, Ancestry.com, and Consumer Reports. If you will just give me a moment, please. I will come up with those numbers for you. Okay, so as I said, now we've got 10,000 people walking through our doors every month. If we go back to 2019, pre-COVID, at that point, we were a bit over where we are today. I anticipate about 120,000 people this year. In 2019, we were at about 146,000 people in the 12 months, so it was a bit higher. It was, maybe in the neighborhood of 11,000 people per month. As far as physical checkouts are concerned, in 2019, we had 307,000 physical checkouts. And this year we are looking at about 260,000 physical checkouts. The numbers, though, are much closer when we add our e-circulation. So the Libby and Overdrive, because we were at about 45,000 in 2019 and over 60,000 now.
Okay, thank you. Another question I had was, when did you finally lift your mask mandate for 2-year-olds, and did any patrons object when they had to do that? And if they did object, how did you handle it? How did that work out?
We lifted our mask mandate when the Washington Ozaukee County Health Department were no longer recommending masks if we were not in a high category of infection and spread. We just used the Wisconsin Ozaukee County Health Department guidelines, and when they said We probably don't need it. We took down the signs. Do I have a date? No, I'm sorry, I don't.
All right, but what happened if did anybody, because I hear stuff from community, and I just wanted to ask you because, I hear it, but I'm not going to repeat it unless I know what the answer is, but how did you if somebody came in and they said, I'm not going to wear a mask, and I don't want my 2-year-old to wear a mask, would you just kick them out or what?
We offered them all of the resources that we have. If they want to sit in their car, tell us what kind of books they like, we'll bring them to them. If they want to come up to the pickup window, tell us what you want, we'll check it out. You can take it from there. You never have to enter the building. There were probably a grand total of 3 people who strongly objected to wearing masks. We did ask them to leave. However, and we had people grumbling about it. People were grumbling about masks all over town, all over the state. But what I did receive were many, many compliments about how we were doing our best to keep our community safe. It didn't satisfy everyone, but there were many people who were glad we did.
So on those 3, did you ever? I know you did, but you had to.
Is this on topic? I mean,
Well,
this is a budget review.
This
I
is
don't know if this is.
Let's stick the questions to budgeting. I'm going to
right.
agree here. Let's just
I have
stick to
one
the
other-
budget.
I have one other question, just one. Okay. Cultural conversations. How much did you spend on those this year?
Cultural conversations are supported by the Wyenberg Public Library Foundation. No public funds were spent for that at all.
Any further budget-related questions? Alderman Bushy.
2 questions. One, perhaps it goes back to what you just answered, is when I started here, there was the whole Logeman Center and people using that for facilities. How has that changed since the Logeman Center went away? Has the library participated in that, or has they gone to other places such as like Rangeline or other places? How's that been handled?
While I was not, the Logeman Center was coming down as I was starting work, so forgive me if I don't have a lot of details. I do know that at one point there was a book sale at the Logeman Center. There has been a change in state law, probably in about 2011, that allowed libraries to sell donated and withdrawn material. So by doing that, we have since opened our own used bookshop. And that we opened in October of 2017. We get lots of donations from the community. People don't like to just recycle books. They'd rather have the books go into the hands of another reader. And we are selling that. We sell those books for $2, $3 a piece. And that has now become a budget item in our budget under other expenses. You'll see that we are looking at earning in excess of $9,000 in the coming year by selling those books.
Thank you. And the second one, I don't know if it's any more a question. You did go through the details. I was surprised when I was looking through this at the 13.2 FTE. I think, if I'm right, the city forecast for next year for everything is 110 or 111 FTE. So you're doing a variety of things, but I'm sure, and this is something that the city administrator mentioned in our FMP meeting, that hopefully there's opportunities for further efficiencies that can be gained and overlap with what we're doing already at the city, besides with the parking lot and other services.
We are looking for every opportunity to partner, and now that we've started looking, we're seeing more and more of them and are working together more often. We're very happy about that.
Thank you.
Alderman Parrish.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director Mushin, and Graham as well. You're the CFO of the library, I believe? Treasurer, okay, yes, nonprofit. But anyways,
Financial guru.
your presentation really, I think, addressed a lot of the questions that we've had. Definitely have a greater appreciation for what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you.
The body count coming through there is astounding. The number of people, providing good customer service for them is critical. Those are our residents. Appreciate you getting the expenses down. Now that we're giving the ARPA money, I'm excited that we can finally take care of that boiler. We don't ever have to hear about it again. And moving forward, I'd like to think that we can feel like the library is in sound structural condition, and we won't have that other feeling we've had for a number of years. My main question relates to the bar chart showing contributions by each municipality for each year. And I'm just kind of thinking, I noticed that Thiensville is just flat, constantly flat. It doesn't seem like any other number is ever considered. I'm just wondering, is one of the reasons because of our growth, because therefore the formula keeps their formula flat, or is it kind of just each municipality is deciding what to throw at this, and it maybe isn't, that's what we need to address in the agreement over the coming year here?
Okay. Well, it does need to be addressed in the agreement that is between the city and the village. Joint libraries, as we are in the state of Wisconsin, the funding of a joint library, and this is minimum funding of a joint library, either needs to be a percentage of equalized value. In Ozaukee County, that is 0.02062, and then a whole bunch of other numbers for 2023, or the average of the last 3 years allocation, whichever is lower. Up until this year, in the years that I have been here and previous, in the years that I have been here, Thiensville was paying more than the minimum. I mean, it's still only $110,000. I realize this. They were paying more than the minimum they had to pay. They have now reached the point where the average of the last 3 years, the $110,740, is indeed less than that percentage of equalized value. One of the things that the two municipalities looked at an agreement about 20 years ago. They had an agreement, they signed it, and it included such things as community growth, the number of the relative populations, and the number of checkouts to Mequon patrons versus Thiensville patrons. That was largely put aside when this law came into being a little over a decade ago.
It's a state law.
State law. So if you can go back and work on that agreement and make both communities happy, that would be fabulous.
Thank you. I think you've answered the question, and I know that's on the agenda of the city to do that. And we look forward to doing a deep dive of your budget and the agreement, and making sure that both communities are doing their fair share to have a great library.
Thank you.
So we just talked about that in Finance and Personnel 30 minutes ago or so, of doing a deep dive on the budget at Finance and Personnel Committee early next year, trying to revisit that agreement, all in preparation for next year's budget cycle, trying to get ahead of that earlier in the year rather than waiting till October and hitting us all at once with it. So this is a good overview for this year, and it will give us confidence executing next year's budget from a city level. But we'll get more information next year as we dig in deeper. Are there any other questions before we, Alderman Meyer?
Just one quick thing. And I was surprised during your presentation that you had a quiet room. I was always, when I was in the library, told to remain quiet, so I didn't. So it was pretty quiet at the time when I was in there, so. But it seems like you are picking up certain aspects in the community that there is a lack thereof, like a community center. And you're picking up some of those deals that are inside there. And fiscally speaking, do you think that's somewhat taken away from your core mission inside that? Financially wise, I'm going to take away from your core mission in that? Or is it something that you consider that part of your core mission now to add those things in to do that?
Absolutely. We do feel it is part of our core mission to serve all aspects of the community. One of the ways we do that, though, is when we do not have programs in the Tolsman Community Room, we rent it out. So other organizations, as long as their meetings are free and open to the public, are welcome to reserve those rooms and pay us for the privilege. It's not a lot of money, but it's some.
Well, we appreciate you adding all those things into it, so to help out the community.
Thank you.
Any other final questions before moving on to the next item? All right, thank you, and we'll look forward to working closer with you in 2023.
Thank you very much.
Next up, we have our second discussion item. It's the review of preliminary design plans for the expansion of pavilion at Lemke Park. Yeah, we're going to have Mike East give the presentation, I believe. Congratulations on your work anniversary, by the way. It's 10 years.
All right, so I'm just going to give you a brief overview. This is John Cooney John Wallenkamp from CUNY Architects. In 2021, the city started for the Park Office Board approved an RFP, council approved an RFP to go forward and go through a planning effort for Lemke Park, which will create a combination bathroom, a restroom, concession, and storage facility at Lemke Park. Over the last year and a half or so, we kind of worked with the architects to kind of we did a needs analysis on what was needed at the park from a use standpoint, a user standpoint. We did a stakeholder meeting with groups from the park, the primary users, and decided to kind of vet through what their needs were, not only now, but what their needs would be in the future, so that we can kind of adequately provide services for them and even new users in that park, and make sure that we had enough of the building capacity we need out there to kind of supply the future needs. With that being said, I think I'm going to have John kind of go through the presentation first, so you guys can kind of see what we're proposing at the park is about an 810 square foot building. Again, it will be a combination restroom, concession, and storage facility out there. When I say storage facility, it's more of a kind of a storage facility for cleaning products, occasional storage facility for basically field equipment and stuff like that for during tournament use. And so it isn't meant to have field storage outside of that. I'm going to have John kind of start here, and then we can kind of talk through what we're proposing.
The master plan you're seeing here is is the master plan for the future of the park. So as this plan is up on the map here, is not how it is today, but it is what the master plan is. So looking at laying out the pavilion, the master plan was taken into account. The large circle you're seeing there with the red square in the middle, that's where we're proposing the pavilion. If you're familiar with the park, the existing open air pavilion, what you're seeing in the image there on the right, the yellow squares where we're proposing the addition expansion of this pavilion. The two pavilions will not touch, but pretty much you can work from the concession area to the north and use both the existing pavilion that's there today. The footprint here shows you the existing aerial view of the parking lot, how it's going to be positioned currently as the park is today. So there's parking just adjacent to it. The upper part of the white you're seeing there is the existing open air pavilion. The lower part is the addition. Mike mentioned the square footage. The actual overall outer footprint of the roof square footage is 2,500 square feet. The actual building components as we get into it is the smaller piece, but the pavilion is much larger because we have overhangs and areas where you can get under cover. Upper right, plan right, you'll see there's a concession on the top right. That is the piece that's going to be just adjacent to the existing open air pavilion. Just below that would be the men's restroom. Just below that is a what we'll call a family single stall restroom. Then the storage area, as Mike mentioned, the storage area is also part of the area where all the mechanicals and electrical will be positioned. So they're controlled by the park staff. When users use the building, they don't have access to that piece, but it can all be set up and housed in that area. And in the lower section is the female restroom, and then a section also undercover, partially covered, is another picnic area. Both areas to the north and south will have areas for pavers that can be sold for donations, things like that, and Mike will get into pieces of that piece. Some imagery of the pavilion. The upper photo to the left, the right side of that is existing, and the new pavilion is on the left. You can see there's covered walkways to get from the north side to the south side. There's also an 8-foot overhang on the north side to cover the concession area, which you can see the concession area window to the right. These spaces are tempered, so there will be heat and cooling, pretty much as simple as a residential type furnace, but that'll actually help with the different revenue sources and also save staff from winterizing these buildings every winter and having extra wear and tear on the building from winterizing them. The south elevation, you can see there again the lay down area for the picnic tables with some pavers. I'm going to go back up one slide. We do have some alternates that we're going to be putting into the plan. Rain gardens, any different green features that we can put, and those will be alternate bids to see where they come in with costs. If there's other grant money out there that we can secure, that would go to that piece. The upper right is the projected cost as we stand today. There's a high and a low. Pretty much we're showing you a high and a low with cost nowadays. It's hard to nail on the cost. We are primarily seeing stuff come in on the designs that we're putting together more on the lower side, but with the unknowns, we wanted to make sure you saw the range and the cost. The bottom right imagery is pretty much the utility costs that the building would cost the city per year. It's right around $3,200 a year. And as I mentioned, that's to temper the spaces and keep that through the winter months so we're not closing the building down.
Are there any specific questions that you want me to go?
Anyone have any questions on the plans? I think they look good. It's kind of right sized. It's massive increase in functionality for the park, but it's not a huge building, so it won't be a lot to maintain in the long run.
Currently at the park, we have two portable restrooms that we use for the season. They cost us about $2,200 a year for portable restrooms. During bit larger events, we have the event holder themselves pay for additional restrooms that are coming in. So if we have tournaments there or something like that, beer gardens, there'll be additional restrooms that come in during the events. It really doesn't adequately support the park the way we needed to during tournament events and stuff. It's actually probably the roughest that we see. That at the park currently, the park houses Boss baseball, Cardinal football, Delta sports, baseball, softball, 2 beer gardens a year, Huntington Park picnic each year, and about the projection for rentals for, if we could include this pavilion, you could, I just did a projection based on the rentals that we have at the current facilities, and we projected out that we rent about 40 times a year in comparison to not just rentals. That doesn't count large events. And then at the current rental rates, we rent this open air pavilion for about $150 a use. We would project that we rented this facility at between like $475 and $500 a use. So I mean, the math means about $20,000 what we expect on a conservative end of things in rental revenues.
Okay, Alderman Bushy?
I guess I have two questions. One is, I was shocked, about the using the portable restrooms. For how many people without the tournament stuff generally use a park over there?
I mean, the park has high use, so every night we have, during the summer, we have baseball at the park. Boss baseball is every night. All fall, starting August 1st, Park of football starts. North Shore United also utilizes the park for some of their littles. It's just their youth kind of rec department, soccer, and then actually lacrosse lacrosse will use the park occasionally. Most of lacrosse has been moved to Lemke, but they will use it for some overflow occasionally. If there's a rain delay or a rain out or something, they'll use the park, not just for single use. So I mean, it's busy all the time. It's just like any one of the parks. I mean, you can, if you told me that you're going to drive into Rotary and you didn't see people, I'd be surprised. I'd be just surprised at that. It's kind of an up and coming park in that area because of the new development as well. I think the connectivity with the kind of off-road trails that go to that park, I think you're starting to see a higher use with some of the central road.
Thank you. I'll borrow Director Lundin's line about planting a tree. It seems like the best time to do this is having had it done, but today seems like a good day. And the second question I have is just considering you said there's a gap between the concessions building and where individuals will eat and if it's raining. I'm just wondering, is there an option for something where, in case rain comes in, that people are going to be going back and forth, and you can just see them running back between the concessions and the tables, and it would seem that could be an opportunity for overlap.
Something we definitely look at. It wasn't thought about, but the thought was to get it out to 8 feet, as you see in the upper image there. But it's something we could look at. The adjacency of the pavilion potentially could be pushed a little bit farther north to take up that gap, and we can create a kind of a canopy overhangs and maybe raise the height a little bit to do that. Definitely could look at that.
Alderman Strelchak?
I'm going to piggyback on that restroom discussion. I'm a former Ozaki lacrosse coach. My son's just finally in high school. I coached, I think, 3rd grade and beyond. This is so long overdue for this park. It's unbelievably ridiculous. My son also participated in Cardinal football, and I think we have close to 200 kids there a night using two portalettes, which is grossly underfunded. I am going to highlight one thing, and I want to bring this up just kind of as a discussion item. Restrooms are going to be open during park hours, correct?
Yeah. So the goal for this building would be to kind of build this as almost a platform in the future for the additional building.
Yep.
So we like this building to be voted so that we can open it during specific times, but have it all
Accessible.
Like that.
Yeah, that'd be great. When I coached lacrosse and we were on that north field, I had 5-6 boys, and you're instructed on a hot day to bring a water bottle, and they bring these big jugs and they slam them, and they have to go to the bathroom within 30 minutes, and you got 2 coaches on the field. The kids would go all the way from the furthest north fields all the way to the portalettes, and it got to the point where as a coaching organization, you either went one-on-one with a kid, which is a child safety thing that you choose to avoid. You don't want to be one-on-one with a kid. You want to at least take a group or a couple people so that you know that child safety is there and critical. Or if you were short on coaching staff and you couldn't leave the rest of the team to go to the restroom with a child, you would send them running, and you'd hire have a spotter kind of watch them and make sure they got there and back, and really keep a really close eye on it. That wasn't a situation that I wanted to be in, and as we're developing this park, I like the fact the restrooms are more centralized. I do want to consider if we do have child activities on that north field in specific to become a regular kind of league thing, like another lacrosse group or something else like a baseball that's not directly adjoining to it, that we save space for the additional at least 2 portalets so those kids don't have to walk through a somewhat unattended parking lot on their own to use the restroom during youth activities. I'm going to mirror what Alderman Bushy said about that overhang. I thought the 8 feet was a little low. As you guys have all been outside in spring and fall in Wisconsin with any light breeze, wind is blowing in, so does the rain, so does the protection. And if you're truly going to have that as a concession area, I think that overhang needs to be increased from 10 or combined with that building moving forward. So I would support that. And then also just kind of in parks, I saw volleyball courts, and pickleball is still on discussion, because if I don't bring this up, the people that I've been telling that I've been the squeaky wheel on this are going to be calling. Pickleball's like next phase for Rotary, right?
Yeah, it's important to point out that for the last 6 years, since before I was in this position, this is the primary goal of the Department of State Sport. So this has been their #1 priority for 6 years.
Right.
And so this has kind of been turned up because of this planning effort that we've done with them. So,
Which is great.
Yeah.
And then just to highlight for the council, because I've been so active in youth sports on, at this field and in and out, I was actually shocked to see how many people were consistently coming in and out every single week, every single weekend, and everything else for events. So, as we're voting in favor of this, really the youth within the community, it's not just a neighborhood park, the youth within the entire community, to be able to use the park and do active functions within our community, as well as host other teams for sporting events here. It's just been a real great asset to the community. So everything that's being done here is just great, and I cheer and applaud it, and will be voting in favor for everything that I see here so far. So thank you.
Alderman Parrish, hopefully one more comment.
Just one?
Well, we're
Yeah.
20 minutes behind schedule.
Yes, I guess my main point after all my comments was going to be that ultimately I think, first of all, I wanted to thank the chair, Jason Kane, for attending, and the vice chair, Bree Peeler, who have been instrumental in getting this project to date. I want to echo that this is like their #1 priority for years, so we need to start showing some progress with our volunteer boards, and I think they've done pretty much all the due diligence we can ask them to do at this point. ARPA funding was critical to make this happen. It is going to wipe out all of the park's funding, and we're going to have to rebuild there and figure out how we're going to tackle everything else here. But like I said, we need to show some progress, and there is a big gap here. And I've said it at the Finance Committee, and I'll say it again here, that I hope that Common Council will consider using about $100,000 in extra ARPA funds. I think this project needs to happen. Let's get it done, and we should be willing to use that for this. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks great. Alderwoman Schneider.
I think it's an awesome idea. I've been on park board several times during this period of contemplation of this project, and I've heard a lot from the community users who have attended the park board meeting, so I'm strongly in favor as well. With this ARPA funding, it needs to be spent in the next 2 years, and I would hate to see this opportunity pass us by for doing something that really needs to be done by this park by not moving this project forward and having this ARPA money relocated to another project, because I think it's really necessary to get this going, frankly. And I understand that there's a gap there, and the gap is an unknown entity because of inflation and other issues. But I think that you've come up with some at least possible other sources of funding, which I don't think are terribly unrealistic given the support from the users. And I just would be curious, and I can ask the finance department later, but, would there be like a bridge funding or something that the city could do in the interim because of this 2-year ARPA funding to help them reach their goal?
Well, I think we'll have to move the project forward and actually get bids and see where the chips fall, and then we'll know with certainty what the gap is then.
Yeah. Okay.
So we can deal with that when we come to it. But by all means, please move forward so we can achieve the goal of using those ARPA funds for this much needed project in the next 2 years. We'll figure out a way to make it happen. All right. If there's no more questions, we'll go on to quarterly department reports. Are there any specific questions on any report in general? Rather than having them come up and present to us, if there's any specific questions, we'll just take those now. I'm not seeing any takers. Granted, we are quite tight on time already. I'll assume that we're good with that item, then we'll move on to future policy discussion and consideration and analysis. Any ideas for the future you want to bring up here? We can always bring them up outside the meeting as well. Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye.